Good morning, Jason. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going, man? Happy to be here.
Doing good. We just have some fun banter back and forth about podcasting, and you're out there providing a bunch of content, and I'm excited to have you on the show because you got a good story, introduced through a very fun mutual friend of ours. So for the listeners, maybe let's just kind of go back and you got a great video on your YouTube channel that kind of explains it in like a very succinct like minute and a half of what you
Yeah,
your
you gotta
story.
be.
It's
Well,
awesome.
we're ADHD, right? Like we lose people's attention.
So let's go back and was it an accident that you became an entrepreneur? Or did you intend to? What did you do? And then kind of what do you do now? And then we can kind of go back and take the journey.
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I mean, even when I was little, whether it be running out on the fairway and on the golf courses and grabbing golf balls and selling them back to the golfers, or mowing lawns. I've always been hustling and kind of selling. But when I graduated college, I graduated with a computer degree, right? A programming degree. And that's the funny part is like I outsourced everything in college. So I was already kind of like an entrepreneur. Like
That's awesome.
so when I worked for Arthur Anderson, I knew shit. Like I didn't know anything. And so I lasted maybe 6 months before, you know, kind of made the switch. And I think it was probably mutual, right? And I was an accidental agency owner, right? One of my friends looked like Justin Timberlake, so I created a website making fun of all of us, like the four of my or the three of my best friends, and it was called In Shit, and it was making fun of NSYNC, and it got popular, and then people started asking me to design websites, and so that's how we got our start.
And what year is this, Jason?
99.
So this is like right as the websites were, probably just a huge big black box for most businesses. Didn't know what was going on.
No, like literally, I literally was going through the phone book and going through the yellow pages and going, you don't have a website listed. You don't have a website. And people were like, what's a website?
Oh my gosh, yeah, just total gold mine. And you were selling them for crazy cheap back then too.
$500. Yeah. I like, and the funny thing is I used to ask people on the show, I'm like, what was your first project? What was the first engagement? And mostly it was all $500. I don't know why we start with that. I don't know.
So then what was kind of what was the growth trajectory, and like, what was, as you continued to grow? I mean, did you start building out a company and hiring people? What was
It
kind of
was
the
a
next
few
steps?
years. So I acted as like a freelancer for a number of different years. And then I started outsourcing a bunch of the development work because that was the funny part. Like I didn't know how to program, but I knew how to design and sell and market. And well, not even really market because there was really not marketing back then on digital, right? It was just like
You were
put a
selling.
website up
You were
there.
you calling people in the yellow pages, man. That's selling.
Yeah, I mean that was selling, and I would get people in the directories like Lycos and Excite and Alta Vista, like, and you might not even be old enough to remember those.
That was about the age that my dad started our family business. So it was back.
Yeah,
I mean, just to kind of really put a timestamp on this conversation, because that was when copiers was technology.
yes, that's right.
So websites are just coming out, and copiers are awesome, and they can now print in color.
I take a bat to my fucking printer all the time. Like literally, printers and copiers last for a fucking month. Like these companies need to go out of business. I'm just gonna rant right now.
But the thing is people are making shitloads of money for that
Yes,
specific reason.
yes.
Don't blow up their business model, man.
I know, but shit, man, build a good product.
Oh yeah, and then they lock you in for 60 months too.
That's right.
I could go on a
That's
little
right.
bit for that.
But sorry that my rant. See ADHD. I'm like, whoa, squirrel, squirrel. Where's the squirrel? But yeah, was doing $500 websites, and then for a number of different years, I was just kind of a freelancer. Met my future business partner who did a lot of programming, and I remember we were going to go to a trade show, and he had a friend that wanted to sell, but we had two companies. And we're like, well, let's just kind of put them together. Like we're really kind of small anyway. And we did that. And then we started getting serious. And then we started going after bigger accounts. I remember the first big account we landed was water.com, which was Crystal Springs and Belmont Springs, depending on where in the world you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just started leveraging that to get like Honey Bay Cam, to get Lotus Cars, Hitachi, Aflac. We built LegalZoom, right? Like, so we just had a pretty fast growth rate after we started getting serious. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, we're going to be kind of touching on different parts of your journey, because you grew it up, you sold it, and then you sold it again after you were there for a while. And then now maybe kind of explain what you're doing now, because as we take the growth path, I think, Jason, what we can do is touch on some of your framework that you're doing right now, because I think the biggest challenge that our listeners have, or a lot of entrepreneurs that are in both your community and the people that I work with, is that growing with the end in mind, right? So you're growing, growth consumes capital. A lot of people think, oh, like that's so awesome, you're growing, but like you've got no cash and you're doing it the wrong way and you haven't really thought about the end result. So I think we can tie in your story with also what you built. So maybe kind of give an overview of kind of the framework and then how you did that with your agency before the sale.
Yeah, well, it took me many years to figure this out. I remember, well, let me kind of tell you a story when we almost went out of business. And I think that will kind of frame everything up of where you need to start. So, and just remember too, like we were accidental, and most entrepreneurs are accidental jumping into their business, which will lead up, and you'll see where I'm going in a second. But I remember getting to a point we were a couple million, and I just felt like I was like, the business kept growing, but I kept making less money, and I was really depressed. And I was like I just didn't enjoy it anymore. Like I was just done. Like I felt like we reached a cap, and like I wasn't making any money personally. And I remember my wife, she's very smart, and she was like, "Well, why don't you just shut it down, go take a job?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, maybe that's a that's a way out, I guess. Like I'll get my freedom back, right?" Because we all start our business wanting freedom, and it's most of the time you don't have it. Creating a business, there's a lot of stuff if you do it the wrong way. And so I applied for NASCAR to be the CMO. And at the time, I used to race cars, so I was like, "Hey, like perfect fit." And I remember them asking me two questions: "What do you love doing every day, and what don't you never want to do ever again?" And I remember going home and thinking about that and going, "Holy cow, I can do that within my business now." And so I took a sheet of paper, and this is one of the exercises I put in the agency playbook. And I like, if you put your fist down on like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper you get out of the printer that never works, and you draw a
Nice plug.
circle. Yeah, I had to like literally. I'm angry at the printing. Jab, jab, jab. But you take your fist out, put it on the piece of paper, make a circle, and start writing down outside the circle everything you hate, that you don't ever want to do or you're not good at, right? And then think about the next exercise is everything in the circle, write down everything that you love doing, that you're good at, like that no one else can do. Okay. And when you do this, you're going to gain so much clarity, because now you're going to be like, all right, I'm not good at writing. So who do I need to hire? I'm not good at numbers. Who do I need to hire? I hate Excel spreadsheets. I hate dealing with clients.
You
Right?
hate printers as well.
I hate printers. So how do we make this digital marketing happen more? Right? Like, so I'm just kidding. I love printing. It's the crap I buy off Amazon I hate. But and so by doing this, now you'll gain clarity. And then you also have to figure out, and that's really kind of the first system. And that goes back to thinking about I'm accidental. So now I'm reacting to the market. And probably if you're accidental, your whole business is based on referrals, which isn't scalable. And then referrals, how they work is you're going to get the same type of business or lower. You never get higher.
Right. Yeah,
And so
that's a good point.
That's why we kept getting more business. The business kept getting more revenue, but our profit was going down. And that's the funny thing about most businesses. They brag, I'm a $50 million company. I'm like, yeah, but your margins are like 1%. You suck.
And it's funny, like, and just right here too, is because I totally agree with you, Jason, where we talk about shifting your mindset from top line revenue and net profit, because even if you're talking about top line revenue, net profit, or your employees, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything, because what's your company worth? Like, what's the actual value of it? Because that's what you should be measuring. I mean, the year we did 21 million, we lost like 900 grand. It's like, who cares?
Yeah. And I used to look at it going, I used to look at success, especially in the agency land, of like people like, how many employees you have, right? And you'd be like, I got 100, and they'd be like, "Ooh, you're doing really well," right? And I'm like,
totally ego play, isn't it? It's
yeah. Or then like and especially when I run agency masterminds, and I always have people go around like, tell us about your agency. And they always start off, the people that don't know us, right? And they
Just
always
walking
go,
into it.
right, they walk into it. And then you'll see some of the smaller agencies, well, I'm 15 people, and they feel like inferior. I'm like, like, look, you can, like, literally my company's 2 people.
Yeah.
Like, and I love going to people. They're like, "Oh, that's a nice hobby." I'm like, "My business does way more profit and revenue than your business." So but I'll never tell them that. I'm like, I just let them think about it. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
certain parts of the country. That's all they care about. Like, that's why I love Colorado so much. Like, they're like, "How fast can you get down the mountain?" That's
Yeah,
like the
that's
question.
the real true judge of success, right?
That's right. I'm like, "Well, you're way better than me." Like, I'm pretty slow.
So, well, maybe give us so, you touched on it a little bit. So you got agency masterminds, you built this framework, and then let's go back to like, okay, so you've got this story that you figured out what you wanted to do, which kind of was your shift in mindset, right? And that's where things started changing. And so my guess is and it will I'll ask the question is, did you build this framework and then do it, or did you shift your mindset, implement different strategies, and now you've packaged it up and are helping other agencies?
Well, so yeah, I changed my mindset. I figured out what I needed to work on, right? So I get clarity. You got to think about, like, I was accidental like most people, and I was just kind of just going with the flow. I didn't have that clarity in order to make decisions. And I look at it like this, and I couldn't give I needed to give clarity and vision to my team, right?
Mm.
So you got to think about, like, as a CEO, we're visionaries. So our roles in order to grow and scale a company, like a true company, are set the vision and communicate it to the team often, right? Mentor and coach your leadership team, not everybody on the damn fucking company, right? Understand the financials, like, hire smart people that understand spreadsheets. Like, I look at a spreadsheet, I want to throw up, honestly. I just like, just
That's
tell
why
me what I need to start.
my partner, he literally says, "I live my world in rows and columns."
Oh my God, I'd shoot myself, right? Like, but we would be great partners
Yeah,
because, like, I hate
yeah,
that shit.
yeah. You and I would we would be like talk a lot, but then who's going to do all
Yeah,
the
we
shit?
get nothing done. It would just be all, yeah, there would just be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's, like, fucking go talk about it. And then it never gets done. And then be the face of the organization, right? And assist sales. Like, those are the 5 roles that you should have if you're running, like, and I'm just talking about for a service level company, right? That's
Yep.
what I know. I stay in my lane.
So you said the 5 were set up the vision, mentor and coach, face of the organization, do sales. What was
Assist sales.
assist
Don't do
sales?
all of
Yeah,
sales.
yeah, yep.
Assist sales, right? And be the face and understand the financials, or be the face
Financials guy.
of the
Yep, yep.
organization,
Okay, cool.
right? And so when I did that, then I needed to realize, like, the most important one is set the vision. So I always use it like analogy like this. Let's say we're on a let's say we're on a cruise ship.
That
We're
sounds
not
not so appealing right
anymore.
now, right?
But let's say we're on a cruise ship with our team.
Quarantine on a cruise ship sitting at bay.
Yeah. And we're going from New York. Where should we go? Let's go to London, right? But you don't tell any of your team where we're going. And so you drive the cruise ship for about 10 hours, and you're like, damn, I'm tired. I need to go to my cabin and go to sleep. And you tell the team, if the boat changes course, come get me and I'll change it. I'll fix it. Well, after about a minute, it changes course. Like, every couple seconds, they come get you. You change the course and you keep coming back. That's how you're operating your business now in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
If you just told the team where the fuck you're going, you're good, right? They're
Well,
going to be able to make decisions without you.
right.
I always tell people, like, if you hire the right people, just delegate the outcomes, and you don't have to delegate tasks, and they'll actually do way much better. And so that's the core of the system. But everybody skips the clarity system. And then once you get that clarity, now you go, okay, and the clarity of who my perfect client is, like, what niche do I need to be in, what services can we actually crush and do really well,
Mm-hmm.
then you can position your company in the right way. Don't position your company as, like, I always make fun of agencies that create a website that talks about their awards and how cool they are. It's like that idiot that comes up to you at a conference, when we used to have conferences. Like it's just a weird time now too, right?
Right.
like, let's say I come up to you, Ryan. I'm like, hey, Ryan, I'm Jason. I grew a really big agency. I'm a really pretty big deal. I've won a number of different awards, and I'm amazing. Like, I'm fucking amazing. I am the best.
And
Like,
I'm looking around your shoulder going,
you're like, fuck you, you're
where's
an
the
idiot.
bar?
Yeah,
Where's the bar?
but that's how everybody's positioning
Yep, yep.
themselves with their marketing and how they talk about themselves. It's all about them. You have to change that of going, how can I ask questions to put the attention on you? How do I position myself as the trusted advisor? Like if you go to jasonswank.com/about, I don't talk anything about my story until the bottom. Like, I start off with asking questions because I care about you. So I'm like, hey, do you run an agency and you're wondering about how to scale? Are you running an agency and maybe possibly would like to exit one day? Well, I might be able to help you, right? And then I go through the framework, right, a little bit, or the little, like, I empathize with them. Like, there's all kinds of
there's some meat here.
Yep. And then I could tell you about my story.
Yep. So then when you have that situation and you okay, so now what exercises did you go through with your team to do this? Because, like, I think that's where a lot of people get challenged. And then what are the other things that you articulated as a vision to delegate? And kind of some context too behind that, Jason, is that, I run into these EOS clients or people that are in peer groups all day long, and they still, in my keynote, I actually say, what is your point B? And they haven't articulated what is the valuation that we're trying to hit, what is the eventual strategic plan. Like, it's like they have to, there needs to be a lot of work done there. So when you guys were doing that, now you're like, I hate this shit, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. How did you then build the system so that way you could cash flow? Because you said you're running out of money, right? So you're now already strapped for cash, and now you hate doing things. So how do you get out of that situation? And then what were the exercises you did to do it?
Well, yeah. So I explained the one exercise from the printer. And so from that, of all the stuff I didn't like to do, I started hiring people and actually started delegating the outcomes rather than delegating tasks. Because I had to delegate tasks because no one knew where we were going. So they couldn't make better decisions. And so I started saying, look, I don't want to have to be on project management anymore. Like, I don't want to deal with the client. So I tasked the operations manager to figure out the process and to build the team that would control that.
Is there
And then
anything
we actually started getting more clarity of who our perfect clients were and what particular services did we need to do for them. So now we could raise our prices. We didn't want to win the race to the bottom. That's what I always laugh at with people. I'm like, well, we need to lower our price because this person's charging X. And, like, it's irrelevant.
right?
And then we also started changing the sales process and the questions that we would ask and focus more on value. So, like, we would go through what I call the 3 I's whenever we would chat with prospects. We would be like, what's your biggest issue? What do you want? What's your biggest issue? That's the first I. What's the impact on your business? And we'd have them come up with impact, not us, because then they'll believe it. And then how important is it to them? So now when I say it's $1 million engagement, and you just told me you're going to make $100 million from it, and then you have a problem with the $1 million engagement, I'm like, what's wrong? What did I miss? Like, you just told me if we do this, you're going to make $100 million or whatever the number is. So, it could be whatever, like, if you're charging 1,000 and someone's going to make, like, I always would do it like on a 10X model. And so by doing that, now I can increase the profit. Now, the one thing I probably think a little bit different than a lot of people, and probably you, is you think about the end goal in mind, right? Like, of selling, and you should. That's your business, right?
Well, actually, like, if just a note in there, it's not necessarily just for clarification. It's not about selling; it's about choices. And
Good.
you pointed at me. My partner. I always point at my partner, and no one can see this on video right now. But it's not about selling; it's about having choices. And most people have put a golden cage around revenue and their income, and they've totally screwed themselves, even if it's a $50 million company.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you should have the choice to sell it or not. Like, if you design a business like built to sell, I think you're going to struggle, because then you're just focused on the money in the service-based world. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. You're just focused on the money, and you don't really care about your most valuable asset, your people. Right. I wanted to build an amazing culture an environment for the team that made a lot of money. And if someone came along and bought it, great, right? Like we went through a number of different things, like mind shifts. So
Yep.
when I wanted to sell, no one ever wanted to buy us, right? But then
Yeah.
when I was like, well, screw it, I'm just going to make it really profitable and allow me
Weird.
to
Yeah.
do the stuff. Like I would go to the racetrack every weekend, or probably during the week too.
Probably. Yeah.
Right?
Delegate, right?
Delegate. Like I was the chief disruptor officer. And so it was good I was out. And so when we started doing that and we started setting up all these systems that I go through in the agency playbook, then it allowed me to have that freedom to pick and choose and do the things that I love doing. And we were making a lot of money, which in turn made a lot of people want to buy us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's all about like when I start
choices,
working
right?
with a client or a mastermind mentor, I'm like, look, they go, I want to sell like you. Like that's the first thing. And I'm like, you want the option to be able to sell, because like some people don't want to get to a certain level, and that certain level will have huge multiples after it. But like if you're making $1 million personally every year, you'd probably be happy as anything. Like why sell? Like if you're right, like
Totally, Jason. And you know what? And that's literally why the word intention is something that we're throwing, because intentional growth is you're doing it for a reason. Right. So the thing that I say is if you want, I mean, you and I talked about this on our previous phone call, is if you just want to make a bunch of annual income, don't reinvest it in the business with no return in sight. Or if you have a plan, if you got $1 million in EBITDA, where are you going to put it? Some for taxes, some for reinvestment, some for yourself, but not like we're going to spend $500,000 today and then none tomorrow. And then and it's like this whiplash based on people not having a plan. And I think this whole thing of being able to do whatever you want. I mean, you probably see this with agencies all day long, and I see it from every industry and every age, is they're trapped because it's not transferable. And I tell this really fun story of this guy that told me this story, Jason. He said, I jumped out of the car every single morning because I loved what I did so much. And then one day he literally got in the parking garage, he went boom, and he like hit, his seatbelt was still on. And he was like, F it, I want to sell. Because he just, the seatbelt was what triggered him. But if you haven't done all this shit that you and I are talking about, you're totally trapped. And good luck doing anything when you're burnt out.
yeah, I mean, and you got the golden handcuffs on you, right? You're like you're on the verge of making some money, and then like you sell for pennies on the dollar,
Yep.
right? And you never know. Like right now, I tell a lot of my clients and mastermind members now, I'm like, now that the recession's like we're
It's
in a
here. Yeah,
recession.
it's
Like, come
here.
on, like
Yeah, they just stopped
scratching that.
trading, right? Right as you and I jumped on, they just stopped trading again.
Like literally. So, but you have an amazing opportunity. So we grew after 9/11. We grew in '08. And like I've been waiting for this day, not for people to get sick or anything. Like I
Yeah,
pray for
that's
them,
way
all that
different.
kind of stuff, but for the market, because it will recorrect and get rid of a lot of the shit and offer a lot of opportunity. Like I was chatting with some of the members yesterday, and they were like, dude, I love it because a lot of the people I go after have really built their businesses by going to trade shows and events. Now they want to do digital marketing. I'm like, yep. Or
Yep.
like people going after, personal injury attorneys, right? They're like, more people are going to be driving and they'll be
Yeah.
getting hurt. They're like, we don't want them to get hurt too bad, but
just
right,
just
like,
enough for a neck sprain.
yeah. But there's also an opportunity to buy these people that are freaking out.
Yep.
Like even now, like I really kind of scaled back a lot of our marketing, our paid marketing until now, because everybody was doing it. Now
Mm-hmm.
everybody's pulling back. I'm like, fuck it. I'm
Yep.
going like
Yep.
literally like I'm getting like leads for nothing. I'm like, this is awesome.
Because the ad spend is so down. Well, and so in this, when we talk about being trapped and having just a transferable company, I mean, so we talk about transferable cash flow no matter what. And again, like you said, it's more enjoyable to own your company when it's like that, anyways, right? You actually have the freedom. It's not the freedom of you. I mean, I love your story about the people coming up and waking up in your cabin to course correct. So, like, when we go back to your story, Jason, is you're building these systems and delegating and delegating the vision and all these other tasks. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the story about when you wanted to sell. Why did you want to sell? And then you decided to shift your mindset again to not sell, but then you eventually sold. So like, what happened in those sequence of events and what was your mindset and thoughts behind each of the different events?
Well, when I originally wanted to sell, it was right around the dot-com era. Like everybody was getting bought for stupid amounts of money. I'm like, well, I want stupid amounts of money. Like, and you got to think, when I started my agency, I was 22. So I was stupid. I didn't know anything. Right. I didn't even, and like funny thing is, like my first client asked me for an invoice. I didn't even know what an invoice was back then. Like,
It's
Google wasn't,
yeah, a bill. Pay
I
me.
couldn't Google it either. Google wasn't around. So I wanted to sell then. And then, so we got bought in the end of 2011. And I always say 2012 because it was the very end.
Mhm.
But it was just the right time, right offer. I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And even after I sold, like I felt like I had success and everybody looked at me as successful, but I was completely depressed. And it took me a while to figure that out, is because I didn't have that significance anymore. I didn't have that purpose of, growing these companies and working with this amazing technology, and being on the cusp and all, and like working with amazing people. And so I was depressed. And that's why I kind of caution people from, some people from selling, but I'm like, but I always educate them on knowing their value. But it was at the point, like your analogy about the seatbelt, I just felt like it was the right time. And it was the
Mhm.
right time looking back at it.
Financially, though.
I'm sorry?
Financially, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
this is
Oh, yeah.
well, and this is, I think you bring up a huge point. So we have these 5 principles, and the first one is your personal drivers. And we talk about legacy, social network, your community, your purpose, your passion. Because I mean, I had the same thing, Jason. I mean, like I built this, what I thought was a really cool business with a good team. We'd won like the Minnesota Wild with managed IT services, just doing shit like 7 years ago was different than even today. And like they shut down all the servers, and I was just like, well, that sucks. I still miss working with my team. And so like there is this, like in to kind of give you the outcome that I want people to have, is to be able to weigh that with a dollar amount, right? So like if my company's worth $10 million from an intrinsic or financial valuation, but someone's willing to pay stupid money at 15, is the extra incremental value worth me sitting at home being bored as shit? I mean, like it's not, it's up to you, right? But that's called a choice. So like when you like, first of all, what was the like, how many employees did you have? And when you say like, when if you spent 10 years engineering the life that you wanted to because of that circle, what were you doing right before you sold, like from the day to day? And like you obviously enjoyed it, and then there's obviously a number. So then,
Mhm.
and then what was it like afterwards when you were actually depressed and you realized that you didn't have those things?
Yeah, we had a little over 100 people.
Okay.
And like the day-to-day operation was like those 5 roles. That was it,
Yeah.
right? That I explained. And then the next week, I went with the new company. So I had an earnout.
You even right into a laughter and just
Well, it's
what?
because, and that's why I do what I do, because I wanted to be a resource I wish I had, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I hate reading books. Like I think I've read like 2 books in my life. Like one was by Brad Gilbert, Winning Ugly, which applies to everything. I'm a tennis player, and then I can't remember the other book. It was so impressive to me. So, and you got to think, not many people did videos and that kind of stuff. YouTube was kind of coming up around then, or maybe I just wasn't on the head of the
Hmm.
times on that part. And so I was just like, I was completely miserable working for this new company. Right.
How
So I
much
had
of your
2 years. My deal
2 years?
was 2 years or the event that they sold again. I was lucky enough that they sold 9 months later. So I could be like, peace out. Right. And so our deal was cash up front, which was good. So don't feel bad for me. And then we had ownership in the new company. So when they sold again, we benefited, and then an earnout, and then a leadership position too. But the leadership position, like I always laugh at that. I'm like, yeah, like I had no say whatsoever. Uh,
Well, and I want to make a comment on that too, because which is really great. And I don't know, percentage wise, and I want to go back to how they value the company, but kind of set some context in our boot camp and our framework and how it relates to what you just said, is that, there's kind of 2 valuations that I explain to people. One is the intrinsic, which is the cash flow, the risk of it. like a bond, right? Regardless of who buys it. And then there's what I call transaction value, Jason, where someone might pay a premium. The fundamentals are based in cash flow, period, right? I mean, it's all based in risk, but someone might have a different weird reason, black swan reason to purchase a company and pay a premium that might not be tied to EBITDA. So that's where you hear this 20 multiples of revenue, and you're just like, dude, that's ridiculous. It's not. So someone has to make money somewhere in the chain of events. So like, I'm curious on the valuation, but then also, when we talk about the different types of exits is that leadership. And actually I've interviewed a lot of a good handful of agencies that have sold on the company or on the show. And too many times when there's a high degree of earnout and leadership positions, they blend what I call ownership and W-2 pay. If you're working, that has nothing to do with the purchase price. I mean, it has to do with you. I mean, but they can't say, well, you're going to get 10 million bucks and $1 million is going to come from 4 years of 250 grand. And you say, well, that's my job. So I'm getting paid 4 million for my company. You're nodding, right? So maybe explain, like, first of all, how was the company valued? And did you kind of go through like
it was all on
auction?
profit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was. Okay.
Like, right. There's multiple on profit. And I always looked at, like, especially nowadays for like in the agency world, I feel that if you're under $1 million in EBITDA, you're going to get 1 to 2x valuation, right? If you're around $1 million to $3 million in EBITDA, you'll get 5 to 8x maybe. Like we just got a client 8x, which was really good, but most of the time it's 5. And then if you're over the 3 million in EBITDA, most of the time it's over 8. And so, that's probably around, where we were.
What percentage of was the earnout out of that?
Oh, a really good percentage.
Yeah.
Like I lost millions. I'll just tell you that, right? Just to like hopefully help everybody else out, is because they literally waited a day for us to get out of the sweet spot, and then they sold. Like literally, like it was just, I was pretty depressed for a while, and then I'm like, whatever. Like, let me take, like, everything is a class. Everything's like a master class that you learn. And even if I don't go through another exit, I can apply that to everybody else. So,
Well, it's great points. And like, so you, even though it was a 2-year deal, so you didn't have to endure the pain of working for someone for 2 years, but they sold, were they jiggering with like when and how to sell? So that way they could,
I think, I really do think so.
Yeah.
But I don't have any
Yeah.
proof. I mean, they were good guys. I mean,
It's math at that point. And
it's
unfortunately,
math and business. Like we were all big boys and made the deal. So like I have no resentment against them. Maybe a little, but
it's things that you should have known. And well, not necessarily you should have known, but like, it's like, when I explain to entrepreneurs, it's like, it's not just a sale. Like there's, I mean, I talk about like, people going to the trade shows and they dangle a $10 million carrot, and then it's 10 million, 1 million up front, you pay taxes, and then you get the rest over time. You have to work for someone, and it takes you 100 years to get it.
Yeah. And then like, if you just looked at it, be like, well, I was like in this business, if someone came and gave me 10 millions now, I would turn it down, because I'm like, look, we're affecting, we have the significance. I'm working 20 hours a week, take off the summers. I'm doing everything. Like we've built the amazing foundation, the framework, the community, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I love working with everybody. Like there's not a price, for it.
Yep.
But I never know. Like one day it may change, and that day I change, I go work on steam engines.
So like, well, let's go back to like why you were depressed, and because I seeing you now, I mean, you seem very happy. And so I went through this, kind of set some context here. I went through something similar where it's just like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? Like, cause like all my friends, all the problems and cool challenges I was working on are gone. So what to you, cause it sounds like you've engineered the life that you wanted anyways. So like, where did you, like, where were you when you sat and you said, okay, like you were reflecting on what you were missing, and how did you go through that?
Well, it took me a couple years. Like I remember I went to go work for some buddies as a chief innovation officer. Didn't like that. I put a lot of time and money into an iPhone app to develop like this app that takes pictures of everything you eat and gives you a visualization. So it changed your eating habits. I hated that. So like I did a number of different things because I wanted that significance. And I also wanted that recognition that I used to get, right? Like the being honest, right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
I like certain spotlights on me. Not as much anymore, even though a lot of people think like you do all these videos. Like I'm a huge introvert. So like this coronavirus, like stay at home, don't touch people. Like I'm like, this is me. Like it works out for me.
Yeah,
Like,
business as usual.
yeah, I'm like, oh, I work from home. I don't seem like I do everything over Zoom. Like I'm good. Like,
Was it weird for you seeing the people that you liked and you being the leader of not going to you for certain things?
yes. Yeah. Cause I mean, and that's why I do what I do now. Like I like
Mhm.
mentoring people. I like sharing with people, I like listening to their business problems, not their personal problems.
Sometimes they're intertwined, but we won't go
Yeah, right.
there.
Well, like, and I'm not a business coach too, so that's the good part. Like, I always like I tell people, I'm like, if you refer to me as a business coach, you're gonna get punched in the fucking nose because I don't want to hear your head shit. I'm just gonna tell you, what's your problem? Here's the solution. Go do it.
So when what was there anything that helped you process this? And like if you were looking at yourself, you just said $10 million, you'd say no. So like obviously you've gone through the processing and again shifting your mindset again about what's truly important and tying the money to what's important and engineering your life around it. What would you have been saying to yourself if you didn't know it before? So you got this number that's that's hanging in front of you. What would you have said?
Well, I think like if it's more about legacy, I think, right? And like as I create content and videos that will hopefully live on forever, I think it'd be cool where my kids and my grandkids will be able to hear and see the progression over
Mm,
the years. I think that's one of the coolest things,
I agree with you.
right? Like they'll be like, oh, like because my dad died a couple years ago, and like he never created videos or anything like that. So all I have of him is pictures,
Hmm.
right? And so I just think it'd be cool going forward, like kind of like everything we do, it's kind of like documenting,
Hmm.
really.
Hmm.
And that's why I always love creating videos or that
Yeah,
kind of
no,
stuff.
I agree with you. I actually haven't gone back and listened to my first podcast in like years because I'm like, it gives me a stomach ache of how stupid I probably sound.
Mhm.
So, by the way, just to kind of a little small rabbit hole is, have you ever heard of or know much about ESOPs? Because I think it's,
Mm-mm.
yeah, I know. And
I
honestly,
live in a little bubble. Like,
talking about Facebook ads and client conversion rates. No, but like, and we won't go too much into it right now, but you can sell your company to your employees using this tool, which it's a trust, and then you actually get your money. You can continue leading and managing your company because you still are the leader, but you sell it to essentially a retirement vehicle. Kicker, you never pay taxes again.
really?
Really? Yeah. Yep. So literally, if you're doing like $1 million in EBITDA, usually you have to carve out 350 grand for taxes. Then you've got distributions, maybe for yourself if you're capable of doing it, and then you're reinvesting the rest. But what happens is when you sell it to an ESOP, it's a financial sale. So you have to build a well-run company, but you get up to, a third to half up front from a bank note, and then you use seller finance at mezz financing terms, and then you literally get to run your company for as long as you want, and you don't pay taxes anymure.
We'll need to talk. We need to talk offline.
Or you can come to you and the listeners can come to.
I hate paying taxes.
Well, and this is what's so interesting because, and I know we've only got a handful of minutes left, but it's like if you learn this shit, you can engineer the life that you want. I mean, there's a guy here in town that they bought 30 companies after they turned into an ESOP because they have pre-tax money. My partner did this they sold their company to an ESOP. I mean, if you've got millions of dollars in EBITDA and all of a sudden you pay, and you can pay down the bank and seller financing within 5 years, the biggest question is, what the hell do I do with my cash? And you
Yeah.
still run your company. You're still the CEO. You still get paid CEO salary. And by the way, you actually invest and get your company back. Big kicker though here, Jason, is you have to have a well-run company, because the people that do really, really shitty things operationally and they want to hand this flaming bag of shit to someone else and then
Yeah.
hope they get lucky, it's like you have no other options. But to your point, if you build a well-run company, you have as many options as you possibly want.
Yeah. And it all comes down to systems, setting up the right systems. And Yeah, makes a big difference. And it
Well,
takes a lot of the stress off. I mean, there's always stress. Like it's never sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and there's always certain things that pop up. You're like, ah.
I see a lot of those things with my daughters here, but at my house. But
Mm.
the what are some of the things that you when you went through the sale, because you now and with all the companies that you work with, that you see perpetually gets value, like it's worth the investment and the time in a business that someone should be thinking about.
Well, outcome like profit predictability is another big one for agencies or service based business, right? Because people most of the time people are going to buy an asset purchase at certain levels, right? They don't want to buy your liabilities, and you know, having like you were saying, the business does not rely on the owners because owners once you get bought, they usually check out, even if they have an earnout. I've seen so many owners go, screw it, I can't take it anymore. Like keep the earnout, it's not worth it.
Hmm. So yeah, no, I agree with you. And by the way, there's this thing called a 338 H10, where if you sell as an asset sale and you check this, you could actually sell as a stock sale, and the seller gets to you take the tax depreciation, and then you just get some insurance to get the rep and warranty. Some amazing shit out there that you can. And this is all I've learned this on the podcast. But these, when you think about when you're looking at like, okay, so this is stuff that I'm valuing. I mean, how do you consult like the mastermind groups of like, how do you afford like the growth of this? Because you explained and how you started hiring and doing these things. What were some of the things that you did to manage your cash and being able to invest these in the business to afford to be able to do that?
Well, it's managing the profit leaks of what I call it, right? So it's about not over delivering or over servicing. Like you always want to over deliver, like the value. But a lot of times as people start charging more, they start delivering way more. Like they're just like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
charged 10 times more. So it's about not over servicing. It's not about undercharging. It's about getting the right people, charging the right amount. And then when you do all that, now you can afford to get the right people and pay people what they deserve and what
Mhm,
they're worth.
mhm.
Right. If you're trying to cheap out, like it's like we built our dream home in Colorado and we hired a general contractor. Now, I could have saved a ton of money if I did it, but the fucking house would roll down the mountain. I would have put a ton of time into it, right? Like, and it would turn out a bad result. So I was like, no, I value people's expertise and I pay them what they're worth. And like, I remember getting bids from a number of people. I'd be like, here's the budget, here's what we want. Everybody said, yep, we can do it. The one person I actually went with was like, nope, you got to raise your budget by like almost half or something stupid. And we actually went with them because they were the most honest. We trusted them
Mhm,
and
mhm.
we'll pay for value.
Yep. Yep. So as we're wrapping up here, and then I want to make sure that we give everybody your the contact information where they can find you. But two questions before we wrap up is, what's your definition of intentional, and then what's your definition of unintentional?
Like as intentional is like you have a purpose, like you're making a conscious decision to achieve something that you want. The other would be by accident. It just happens, right? That's a lot of what I do. It's
Yeah.
just like I fell into this business by accident too, right? Like old competitors were like, "Hey, how'd you build a big business? How'd you sell it?" I just started helping them out, and I was like, "Hey, I got my significance back. I like this."
That's awesome. So because you're giving back and you can tell that you're enjoying it too, you've got stuff all over the place. What are the different places that the audience can find you?
Yeah, jasonswank.com. Swank is spelled Swenk, so just jasonswank.com. Literally, almost all our knowledge is out there for free. I mean, we have been doing the podcast since end of 14.
Yeah,
So
that's
6
awesome.
years. We've been doing YouTube videos. If you want to laugh, go back to the first videos. Like we have over 1,000 pieces of
Wow.
macro content, not even micro content.
Yeah, yeah, like a full.
So yeah, we just try to put out more information than anybody else just to, help everybody make better decisions and feel that they're not alone in running their business. And then, start there. And then you guys always look at the playbook or the mastermind later on if you like the style and that kind of stuff.
Jason, it's been a blast having you on the show, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.